All right. Hello, everybody. We will get started here in just a couple minutes, but I do want to test that audio to make sure that's working. So if you can let me know if the audio is working, type yes into. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Before we get started, just a couple of the normal reminders. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation. You can type those in by clicking the Q&A chat, Q&A or the chat section of the lower portion of your control panel. Feel free to chat between yourselves as well throughout. We will be posting a recording of the webinar on our blog. The link for that will be shown at the end. And if you'd like a PDF copy of the presentation, there will be a link to download that on that same post as the recording. If your question does not get answered today, or if you think of any others, please email our support inbox, which will be shown at the end as well. All right, so what is on the agenda for today? Building a balanced life. Today is going to be all about time management. We're going to talk about why it's important to work on managing your time from a health perspective. And then we're going to discuss some tips on improving yours to make time for things that matter most to you. So some of you may be thinking time management, right? This is a wellness webinar, right? What does that have to do with time management? Well, when you're rushing around trying to find time for everything that's going on in your busy life, what happens? We get stressed out, right? And stress is a big deal when it comes to your health. Some common symptoms of stress include irritability, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, not good at work, right? Forgetfulness, loss of sleep, headaches, other physical symptoms, and even things like depression. Working on time management is one way we can help prevent some of this stress response from happening. It's never going to be perfect, right? But if we create a little more time for us and what's important, it's a step in the right direction. We hear the term work-life balance a lot, right? And while there's some disagreements as to what that actually means, creating a clear distinction between work life and personal life is really important for most people. And working to improve time management can be key to better balance overall. Even if you feel like you have good balance with work and home, some of you may feel like you don't have a balance between other things outside of work, right? With other commitments, things like that. So these tips today can apply there as well. So let's start off with some things that you can do to help balance your life. Whoops. Go back here. I'm going to start with a quote. You don't manage time, you manage choices. I heard this in a talk I went to a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was a genius way to talk about time management. Everyone has the same amount of time, right? We choose how we spend our time. Yes, you do have certain things that you have to do, like go to work, take kids to activities, things like that. But there are so many times during the day that we have the choice on what we're spending our time on. So just wanted to start out with that because I really think it's a good mantra overall to have when you're working on balance. So first tip, I suggest you do a time audit on yourself. Keep track of some normal days for a week or so to get a good feel for the average time you're spending on specific tasks and areas. You can do this for work, you can do it for home, you can do it for both. But you can have a sheet of paper to write down activities that you're doing during the day. It can be that simple. There's templates too online that can have the time to organize for you that you can fill it in. You can create an Excel or Google Sheet, do it on your phone or computer. There's also apps that can help you do this as well. And a lot of phones and apps will keep track of your time that you're on different apps on your phone throughout the week is specifically as well. A lot of times, which we'll talk about this more, our electronic habits are the areas where we typically have the biggest opportunities to create more time. Like I said, I'm going to touch on that later, but knowing your time there specifically can be helpful. Knowledge and awareness are our most valuable assets when it comes to improving our time management. So I highly encourage you not to skip this step. So then once you figure out kind of what you're spending your time on, again, normal days, then the next step is to analyze that data and make a plan. Depending on what you found when you did your time audit, you can start to set some goals, make yourself more efficient, right? Are there tasks that took way longer than they should have because you got distracted by something else? Do you need to give more time to another area? Did you spend 45 minutes on social media that could be cut down to 15? The majority of the time when people do that time audit, they find that if they make some small changes and structure their day even a little bit better, you can find some more of that time that we're all looking for, right? Be realistic when setting your goals, though. If you spend 2 hours after supper every evening watching TV right now, it's probably not going to be realistic to say, okay, I'm not going to watch any TV anymore, right? So, like any goal, we want to set small steps, work towards those long-term goals. Use that SMART goal method. Be specific, make the goals measurable, keep them action-based so you know how you're going to achieve them. Make them realistic and relevant to your life right now. And then keep them time-based so you can have that motivation and know when you're checking in on yourself. Okay, you've got some goals where you want to improve. So what's the next step after that? Next step is getting organized. Make a schedule for one day, one week, whatever you're comfortable with and whatever is realistic in your world, in your lifestyle. Writing down your schedule can give you a realistic idea of how much time you actually have for different things. Now, some of you will be able to plan many days in advance because your days are fairly similar, right? Some of you may only be able to plan a couple days in advance, and that's okay. Like I said, just do what works best in your life. Again, there's many tools that can help you plan your day and your weeks. Phone or email will probably have some sort of calendar on it, right? Google Calendar, Apple Calendar are great options depending on what kind of devices you use. If you're a paper and pen type of person, there are millions of wonderful physical planners out there for you as well. Again, the key is just to take a few minutes, doesn't have to be a lot. Look ahead in your week, jot down what you have going on, and you'll start to get an idea of where you can possibly shift some things to make room for the other things that you may not feel like you have time for right now, but really need, right? That's the bottom line. We want to find time for what we really need. Now, there are going to be things that pop up that you don't expect, right? That's life. But you can also plan for changes, have flexibility in your schedule as well as much as possible. So, for example, let's say you have a goal to include 3 days of exercise each week. Have those first options set up, let's say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Now, if something comes up and you can't go on Wednesday, are there other times that you can get in a quick workout? Have those backup plans loosely mapped out as well so you can have that flexibility in your schedule. Another thing to think about is knowing yourself and your typical energy levels. Do you usually take a little bit to get that focus back after lunch? Maybe not schedule something really important if you can control that, right? If you think something could possibly take a little longer, but you're not sure, add on some non-scheduled time after that, just in case. Then what you can do is have another smaller task or to-do item that isn't as urgent in that time. So if you have time to do it, great. If not, that task can be pushed to another way. Again, everyone's schedule is going to look a little bit different, but if you start to practice this and see what works for you, hopefully you can figure out what works best for you. Along these same lines, adding in a tip from James Clear, who is the author of the book Atomic Habits. It's reduce the scope, but stick to the schedule. I love this tip. It goes along with a different piece of advice that James has, set a schedule, not a deadline. So this means that instead of saying, I want to lose 40 pounds by the end of the year, my goal is to follow a schedule of healthy habits that leads me towards that weight loss. So then your success is not measured by that one date at the very end of the year. It's measured by how consistently you follow the schedule and those small goals that you achieve each week, which is going to ultimately lead you to that big success, right? That's what you have to do. This is a fantastic mindset to have when setting goals, and we can apply it to time management as well. So let's say you scheduled yourself to go for a 30-minute walk after work. So things kept coming up and you ended up with only 10 minutes for that walk. Do you still go for the walk, or do you just sit and scroll on your phone for that 10 minutes instead? I hope we know the answer, right, to that. So often we give up on tasks because we don't think it's worth it to only do part of what we planned. I think that's specifically relevant with health habits. For the vast majority of things, this is absolutely not true. This applies with other things as well. If you have time set aside to work on a project, but that time got cut in half, that's still more of that project done than if you decided it wasn't worth it, right? There's multiple benefits to reducing the scope and not the schedule. Even if you can get a small percentage of a task done, you're still that much closer. But also you're creating those mental connections and creating habits in your head of working on things or doing a workout, for example, in that time frame. This is a really important mental aspect of habit forming. And also, you're not going to cut into the next task you had planned, right? So the rest of the day is not affected. You're still just spending 10 minutes instead of 20 minutes, whatever it would be, and you're still accomplished something. This helps your day stay efficient and also helps, again, build those consistent habits. Next tip while getting organized is to prioritize, right? To manage your time in the most effective way, you need to decide which tasks come first. Taking time to review that day, creating a to-do list can be a first step. Then the next step can be to label those tasks as urgent, important, or neither. Then you can prioritize in the order that makes the most sense. A great tip I got from an article on Coursera.com talks about the difference between urgent and important tasks. So urgent tasks are the ones that you must complete as soon as possible, right? Because of a deadline or whatever it may be. While important tasks are those that matter, but there's more flexibility on when they get done. So if you have an important report, but that's not due till Friday, it's important, absolutely, but it's not urgent, right? If you have a meeting at 3 o'clock today that you need to prep for, that's going to be on the urgent side. Now, this may seem obvious, right? But I feel like many times we tend to procrastinate because we may want to work on something else, right? Maybe that important thing you really want to focus on, but that urgent task just needs to be done first. So prioritize first, get those stuff done, and then you can work on that stuff that's important. This goes along with another James Clear tip is do the important things first, right? Makes sense. Think about when you get to work in the morning, when you're all energized and ready to go, or maybe Saturday morning after you've had a great night's sleep, you have lots of stuff you want to get done that day. Now think about how you feel around 3 to 4 in the afternoon at work or that same Saturday afternoon after a busy day. Some of you are going to say, I'm still going strong, which is fantastic, good for you. But some of us, as that day goes on, the schedule can get more and more draining, right? Our willpower can kind of go down. We end up possibly putting off some of those important tasks, that important workout or that relaxation time that we should have done for ourselves, or some other what we perceive more important task comes up. This becomes even more stressful if you've left those most important tasks for later in the day, right? If you get those things done right away, then if something pops up as the day goes on, you have the most important things done already, and that stress response may just be a little bit less because the other things that you have, maybe they're important, but maybe that, again, that deadline is flexible so they can be scheduled for another day. Another reason to do those most important things first is that they can be a huge distraction to you while you're doing other things, especially if it's something that you're not super excited to do, right? This leads me to my third James Clear tip, which is eliminate half work. Half work refers to working, but also trying to balance other tasks at once instead of just stopping to focus on one task and doing it with all your energy. So that big task you have is just in the back of your mind, right? While you're trying to focus on other things. What this does is it can lower the quality of the task you're doing now, leading to more issues later on. Another example is if you're writing a report and let's say you stop randomly to check your social media or your emails. I catch myself all the time doing this, right? You probably do. And it doesn't help when your phone prompts you with all the push notifications and the vibrations and all the noises, right? The point of this is that when you're doing half work, it typically takes you twice as long to complete your main task. And a lot of times the quality, again, may not be as high. So when we're talking time management, if we're doing things and they're taking longer than they actually should, It's the opposite of what we want, right? So things like closing your email, turning off your phone. If you can't turn off your phone, put it across the room, turn off notifications other than, important notifications. Those are just a few ways to help lower those outside distractions and focus on that task at hand. Again, I know this is not easy and it's not always realistic. Things do come up, right? Kids who need something right now, mom or dad, right? Or a coworker who asks the same way for that matter. But if we start to become more mindful of some of those distractions that we can control, a lot of times we can get tasks completed quicker. Again, adding that time to our day, which is the goal. Next tip is combine tasks. So now I just talked about not getting distracted and doing half work, right? I'm not contradicting myself. This tip actually refers to those tasks that don't necessarily require your full attention, but you have to do them. So think about at home. If your kids are working on homework, you don't need to be just sitting there waiting for them to ask a question, right? Do a workout while they're working. Then you can have a quick breather if they do have a question. While supper's cooking, switch over a load of laundry quick. During your commute or a walk at lunch, listen to that podcast that you wanted to listen to for a long time. If you have to stay at a child's practice, go for a walk around the field to get that exercise in. Bring that book that you've been wanting to read or do a meditation. There's so many examples of this if you can get creative, right? Think about stuff that you are required to do to be at, but that you can maybe add on something that you want to do to check that off the list. Be efficient with that time. Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker, most of you probably heard of him. He talks about something similar called the chunking method. Basically, it just means putting all of your related tasks into smaller groups so they're easier to manage. So you've got your to-do list. Put things that are similar together, things that you can do combine at the same time. It just makes it easier to kind of visualize what might be the best way to organize your day to tackle that to-do list that you've got for the day. Another Tony Robbins tip is the 20-minute rule. So this is one of those tips that at first glance seems really simple, but if you stop and think about it, it's pretty genius. So first, you get your mind ready. You say, all right, give yourself a little pep talk, right? Let yourself know that you're about to focus on something important. Prepare to tackle that task and then set your alarm for 20 minutes. Until that alarm rings, give that task everything you've got without any distractions. Again, we talked about turning off those distractions if you can. When that alarm goes off in 20 minutes, then you can say, all right, am I going to just be done with this for the day or am I going to keep going? If you're going to keep going, take a small break and then get back to that task. Repeat that process until you're done, right? Might not be the same day, but have that 20-minute kind of power time, right? Working on your tasks in these 20-minute chunks helps you kind of pull yourself mentally into the zone. Because I know that's a lot of times that's hard, right? To get to that focus because there are so many distractions that we have. So you don't want to just hope that you're going to fall into that zone. Plan for it. And then ideally, if you do it enough, you'll be able to learn to kind of slip into that mindset on your own without the aid of that timer. Okay, next tip. All right, if you're really overwhelmed by your schedule and you're not finding ways to add more time, you might have to utilize that scary word no, right? I know it's hard to even say it, but again, if you're at that point where you can't find any time to your day, my guess is that you might be doing too much. Tony Robbins again talks about using what's called the pause. This simply means just don't answer immediately when someone asks you to commit to something, which we can end up regretting because we took on too much, right? Instead, let them know you'll get back to them. Take a realistic look at your schedule. And then if it makes sense, absolutely say yes. But if you know it will be too much, then you can respond appropriately, right? It's fantastic to help out others. It's fantastic to be involved. But if it comes at the expense of your mental health or time that could have been spent on something that is ultimately more important to you, then it's okay to say no. There's that other saying, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else, right? So make sure majority of the time, what you're saying yes to is the more important things. Delegating tasks is a good idea if possible as well. At home, asking for help with chores that you normally do. At work, hopefully it's an option to possibly delegate as well. Again, not always, but giving others around you the opportunity to help you is extremely important. You do have people that want to help you, I promise. Just give them that chance to do it. We all want to be the super person. We want to do everything, right? But that's not helping you. It's not helping the people around you a lot of times. Give them that chance to help you, and I think you won't be disappointed. Next tip is for my procrastinators, right? We wait for the last second and then it's like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff that I have to do? And it's literally start somewhere. A lot of times we procrastinate because we just don't know where to start, right? If I want to clean my entire house, but I don't know where to start, a lot of times we just don't start at all. So again, not easy, but try to change your mindset on this. One thing, one room, one task, whatever it is, commit to it and get started. Along the same lines as that 20-minute rule with different things, just say, I'm going to do this for 5 minutes. Find some action you can take in 5 minutes to help move towards the completion of something. Research shows that when you literally just actually start something, you're more likely to finish it. This is why maybe if you've done coaching before, a coach just says, maybe get on your treadmill for 5 minutes to start to create a habit. It's because this gets that connection started in your brain, like I mentioned earlier, that eventually becomes that habit. Chances are you're probably going to do stuff for more than 5 minutes, but if you say, let me just do this for 5 minutes, it can make all the difference in the world with just getting started with something. Next tip is to take breaks. There are numerous studies out there that show that those who don't take lunches, don't take breaks, are actually less productive overall than those that take a few minutes each day to mentally and physically reset. Now, obviously, there's a balance with this, right? You can't take a 3-hour lunch every day, but if you have your normal time to stop, if you have 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes here and there to go walk around the block, get some fresh air, it is going to help you be more productive. And at the end of the day, it's actually going to save you time, most likely. I know you might want to power through sometimes, but in the overall big picture, it's almost always better to have manageable time frames with breaks. Again, there's going to be exceptions to this depending on things that are going on, but really, really strive to have those breaks in your day. It's going to help you mentally, physically, and again, with your time management as well. All right, one last tip for today, and that is doing a digital detox regularly if you can. So we talked about this a couple times already. When you do your time audits, a lot of you are going to find that you spend a lot of your time on your phone. That's probably the biggest one, right? Computer, tablet, watching TV, etc. What if you set aside time on a regular basis to not be on a device or connected to technology? This can actually seem scary for some of you, right? If we're being honest, we are actually addicted to social media, those things. I mean, again, more studies are coming out all the time as far as we're spending too much time, and we know it, right? But it's really, really hard to not do it. And again, technology, social media are not all bad. They connect us in many ways. They're fantastic. But when we're talking about specifically creating more time in our days and our lives, they are a major time suck. I think I heard a couple people, or I think I saw a couple people already put that in the comments, right? So this is just something to think about. Try it for an hour at a time to start. I know people that do a whole day a week of their digital detox. And again, I know it's not always possible, but if you can put that device down for a specific amount of time, I can bet that you're going to find something productive, some kind of self-care that you can do, some sort of activity with a loved one, something that's going to make you happier and healthier overall. So try to find that time to do that digital detox. All right. To summarize today, time management is a skill like any other skill. It takes practice to do it well, right? There's people on here that I know are like, man, that's impossible. But Start again, finding 5 minutes, finding 10 minutes in your day, doing what you can to find that small amount of time. And then building from there is really the best way to start, right? Small steps, like we always talk about. And so don't get discouraged if you still feel some stress after you've started it, right? It's going to get easier. So track your time, see what you actually do all day, right? Set realistic goals based off of that about how you can tweak your days to make yourself more efficient. And then use any of those tips we talked about today or do more research. There's lots of other ideas and suggestions out there. Find what makes sense for you to help you along the way. Time is something that will never stop, right? But we can find ways to use it to our advantage, take some of it back in our busy lives. Good luck to everybody. All right, before we get to questions, if we see if there's any here in the next couple webinars, we have emotional eating. Coach Libby will be back next month to talk about that. Very big and important topic. And then at the end of the year in December already, we're going to talk about personalizing your wellness journey. So basically just figuring out how you can figure out how you want to set up your life to achieve some of those goals. You know, we want a one size fits all type of diet. We want a one size fits all type of exercise program. It's not realistic because everybody's different. So we're going to talk about how to set up your own program. All right, if you do have lifestyle rewards, here are the questions. Again, some of you have lifestyle rewards that you do not have to answer questions for. If you do, these will be the questions that will pop up or that you'll have to put the answers in. I'll give you a second to screenshot. Otherwise, this will be on the slide deck. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there's a link to our blog here that'll be on the next slide that you can download the slide deck so you'll have access to that as well. And then here's our contact information. We are on social media. There's that blog link so you can watch this webinar again. It'll have the recording in the next couple days. You can watch past webinars. You can register for upcoming webinars. And then if you do want to chat with the health coach about anything health related, give us a call or you can email us at healthcoach@healthcheck360. We would love to chat about anything you got working on.